So our bodies are like 90% empty space. So in terms of physics, we have traditionally just defined empty space as non-existence or non-physicality. In the past 10 years, physicists are exploring the idea that empty space is actually a physical property. And since about the 50s or 60s, we have been exploring the idea that empty space might be what consciousness is. So in terms of biology, we can process the information of thoughts. We're getting better at recording thoughts in terms of vibration and frequencies, and we're getting better at understanding what thoughts are inside the brain. I think it's just sodium moving about in our head. But the information isn't going anywhere. The information is just moving around our system. So biologically, we've been exploring the idea that maybe empty space is actually consciousness. And then physicists are starting moving to the idea, or exploring the idea, that empty space is actually a physical component. It's actually a physical state itself. It's not physical. That would mean everything then. Physical emotions, thoughts, and empty space are actually just a part of the physical plane. There's actually just a physical plane, and there's nothing else. Which is fine. I mean, you can call it chemicals, you can call it energy, you can call it vibration. We're talking about the same thing. We can call it the mathematical universe, talking about the same thing. So that physically, that's what I'm talking about, emptiness. In terms of psychology, in terms of Buddhist philosophy, Mahayana Buddhism, we have Shunyata, which is just without form. So in the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. In order to see something, a form, we need to have emptiness to define it, and to experience emptiness, we need to have a form around it. If we didn't have form, there'd be no reason to have the concept of emptiness. That form is just a dense form of emptiness, which is very similar to what physicists are starting to say. So that's cool. I love it when physics and Buddhism comes together, because it usually means it's right. Yeah, and most energetic systems always like Kabbalah, Taoism, they tend to describe emptiness as a form of energy. So there is no empty space. There is no separation between the mind, body, and heart. It's all a continuum. So for me personally, so that's that. There's the physics and the Buddhism out of the way. For me personally, when I realize that I am not who I say I am, the identity of declaration, I am whatever. I am whoever the fuck you call yourself, or your description, male, Irish, body, dancer, lover, whatever. That the identity of I am something is projective, and it's always going outwards. Our identity is always moving away from the source of the identity. So for me, I am the empty space to where that identity is arising. I'm not the identity itself. So it's like the identity is like a finger pointing at the moon. It's not the moon itself, right? I know some of what I'm saying is really hard to grasp, but I'm speeding up. Tough. Just deal with my way of identifying with things. So the difficulty I had with identifying with emptiness as my source is that once I'm looking for emptiness, I'm now looking for a concept, and I'm stuck in the mind again. And once I experience the emptiness, I try to define it with words, I get stuck in this loop. Like, I have the nothingness experience, the ego is dissolved, and the ego just comes back again as a spiritual ego. And this is basically what religious fundamentalism, like identifying with consciousness or emptiness, is just another ego trip. And the Buddha points this out. the consciousness itself is just another illusion. The mind is created to explain things. It's not evil, but it's that's the way it is. There is no observer, right? There is no observer other than this mobile phone and YouTube. There's no observer. So for me, I'm now connecting with what I'm calling the vortex. I've heard many people call this the vortex before. Listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and I'm going to call Abraham Hicks a she, Esther Hicks, whatever I want to call her. She's now making more sense to me. And other people call it the vortex. So why, before I get to the vortex, why I don't call it the source? The source, like what I'm saying about emptiness, is another intellectual concept. So what's the source of me? What's the source of the universe? What's the source of consciousness? If I was to answer, if I was trying to answer that question scientifically, I would say empty space expanding. That the beginning of the universe, there was empty space expanded. This is what I'm calling the love vibration, love energy, and that creates physical form, and that then started creating our version of consciousness that we have as humans. It'd be like mine trying to get into a scientific way. But that becomes source and God. Well, I don't use these phrases source and God. Maybe I'll use source, but God, society, all these kind of concepts, they for me bring me too much in my head, and I run the risk of becoming a fundamentalist again. So why I like using the vortex? Because the feeling of the vortex, I can get into. I find it easy to get into. It's easy to get into. Getting into the vortex. Just a swirly feeling. You know, like I have my physical form, which is the dense part of the energy. Itself is an expression of love. All the energy feelings that I have is just on the spectrum of love. Love would be like almost like the purest form of the energy. That's arising from emptiness expanding itself. And so the vortex is what I call all of that together. And it's the reason why I'm calling it the vortex, because it's more of a feeling word, and I want to connect with the feeling more than the concept or the idea. Like whatever that feeling is in my body, I'm just going to call it the vortex. It doesn't need to be a very well thought out scientific or philosophical ideal. There's a feeling inside of me, I call it the vortex. To me, it's reality, truth, and love. I could call it Satchitananda. I could call it Shunyata. I could call it that the space before Kether. I mean, we've got lots of names for it, but I'm not calling it the vortex, because to me it's a feeling word, less of yeah, it's a great space to be in. I quite enjoy it. Like I feel like when I'm in the vortex, I feel very content, and I don't need another thing, because there is no other thing. I can't go get something. I can't get another thing, because there's just the vortex. And everything else is just a fun little idea that's swirling around the vortex. Like, yeah, I feel more complete. And I notice that without effort, things that I want are just coming to me. Without effort, I don't really need to think about it. Like, whatever. Like, yeah, more opportunities are coming my way now. Yeah, maybe like when I have a clear, so when I feel into the vortex, and I have a clear intention of what I actually want, I don't really need to think about it as a spark, and automatically my subconscious will go for it. I mean, you can call this the law of attraction. But yeah, I should probably get back to work. Love you.